if you're at a barbecue and you're talking to Eddie the expert, who's going to tell you about property and property cycles and where the next big thing is, here's what most people will probably say to you. They'll talk about their own backyard. They'll talk about their own little area, because that's basically all people know about property. And it's probably one of the biggest mistakes potential novice property investors make. And, you know, when I started, I did exactly the same thing. I bought a couple of properties in a specific suburb in Geelong, purely because it was my own backyard, purely because it was the only thing that I knew, right? Now, did I make money? Well, I actually did at the time, because when I bought, a property boom started to happen pretty much concurrently when I was buying. So I bought one, then I bought another, then I subdivided, right? But to be honest with you, I friggin' fluked it, right? I fluked it. I didn't even know what a property cycle was, which I'm going to teach you in a minute. I didn't know about micro and macro markets and how the whole property game really worked, right? But I was lucky enough to fluke it at a time when the market started to rise and the market started to go off, right? And which it did. Now, this is the thing you need to understand. Buying in your own backyard may not be the best thing, because let's say, for instance, you bought a property and you might say, well, you live in Melbourne, right? And you bought a property here. But the market in Melbourne might be heating up. The market in Melbourne might be hitting at a peak. The market in Melbourne might be doing different things in different suburbs, but you're thinking, because you watch the media and you watch the news, you're actually sitting there thinking, oh, let's get in Melbourne. Oh, it's all hot. I can guarantee you this. When it's in the news, it's probably old news, because they're not on the floor. They're not on the floor at home. So, for instance, you could be investing in Melbourne when you probably might have been better off investing in Brisbane. You could be investing in Melbourne, you might have been better off investing in Adelaide. You could be doing Melbourne while you might be better off investing in Perth. So, you would have heard the term diversification. Obviously, if you live in Melbourne today and you've got your own home in Melbourne, then obviously an investment property in Melbourne could be a good idea, but it might not be. So let me just explain to you the cycles. You might be investing in Melbourne when you're better off investing in Geelong. You might be investing in Melbourne when you're better off investing in Ballarat. There was things that we've seen in, I'm talking, 2021, 2021, 2019, 2021. There were some things happening in the markets all over Australia that you may or may not have been aware of. So let me just show you basically how most property cycles work in Australia. So here's generally what happens. The first place that usually starts a bit of a boom, number one, is Sydney. And Sydney market will run for 2 or 3 years, and all of a sudden it'll peak at certain price points, will peak, and investors will look at that and go, oh, I can't buy in Sydney now, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down to Melbourne. Now, why does that happen? Well, obviously, population. Sydney's the biggest city in Australia. Melbourne will be the biggest city in Australia by about 2026, I think they said. Then the third area that goes, once Melbourne's had its spurt and it's really burst on, then comes Brisbane, right? That'll go, and this is the cycle that we're starting to see fall out right now. And then you'll have a bit of Perth, and then you'll have a bit of Adelaide. Now, do I talk about Tassie and do I talk about Darwin? Not specifically. I mean, Tassie, their cycle down there runs on about a 15 to 17 year cycle. Our cycles here run between 7 to 10 years. Okay, so to get a double and an increase on your money, purely because of population, purely because of demand, supply and demand, jobs, employment and that type of stuff. It's a pretty small demographic. Same with Darwin, it's pretty transient. It's more of a tourist location. There is a bit of oil and gas stuff up there, but I particularly don't go into those areas. I stick to the big majors and make sure where you've got population growth, you've got jobs, you've got employment, all these sorts of things, right? So Melbourne's been great if we're talking, say, 2020, 21. Now, the cycle that we've had through COVID, right? This is just amazing, because all the press, if you remember early 2020, what did the press come out and say? Properties are going to drop 40%. Properties are going to drop 50%. That's what the media were out there telling us. Well, I'll tell you what, they didn't do that at all. They actually just kept going up and up and up and up and up, right? And that's what happened. Now, this is what we call now a cyclical cycle that happens about every 20 to 25 years in this country. This boom is happening in every city in Australia, but it's not only happening in capital cities, it's happening in regional cities. So be careful in the regional areas. I'll go to Geelong all day long, I'll go to Ballarat all day long, big populations, but I know there's big government spending, big infrastructure, okay? So not only do you need to know where these areas are or how these cycles work, you also need to understand the demographics going on behind these cycles. And I'll shoot all this in another video for you, but you need to understand where infrastructure spending is, government spending, private investment, jobs, employment. This is what we want. Schools, hospitals, railways, roads, freeways, all that stuff generates demand. And when you've got minimum supply, maximum demand, that's when you're going to get significant price uplift, folks. So for the video today, just a bit of a shout out. This is how the cycles work in Australia. So number one, get yourself educated. If you want to live a comfortable life, a comfortable lifestyle, and property investing is a way for you to look at doing that, which we all know bricks and mortar in Australia is a pretty good way to do it, then you need to get knowledge. You need to get educated. You need to understand what happens in property markets. So here's what I suggest you do. Spend some time learning this stuff. Spend some time studying this stuff. If you jump on board and become a client with me, I've got property education and coaching programs that I give to my clients that are going to help get you more educated and give you that more knowledge, because the biggest thing that holds people back, you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you need to know, folks. But when you learn and understand this stuff, it's fairly simple. Inside every market, there's macro markets, there's different suburbs, there's different types of properties, there's townhouses, there's units, there's apartments, there's house and land, there's all this mixture going on. So will you know how to pluck a good deal if you're looking at the whole of Australia? Probably not. But anyway, that's part of what I do, is all the research and teaching and coaching to help you do all that. So for now, I just want to give you that basic understanding. This is how property cycles work, generally speaking, in Australia. That's the way to follow it around. The other good thing you can do, look at companies like Westfield, Stockland, Lend-Lease. Where are the big boys playing? Because the big boys are going where they know the population will grow. Pretty simple, right? All right, hope you enjoyed that. Increase your IQ when it comes to property, because the more knowledge you've got, the more confidence you'll be, and the better property investing decisions you'll make. All right, hope you enjoy your journey and hope you pick a winner.